The whiskey we're going to be trying today is a bourbon, and it has a very different flavor profile than any whiskey that we've had so far. And that's one reason I included it. Well, I mean, don't need to beat around the bush. Today we're going to be trying Old Forester, but not the 86 proof version. We're going to be trying the Orange 100 proof version. So when you go to the store, most stores do carry Old Forester, but if you look at the bottle, you're going to see that it has a blue little ring here, and it's going to say 86 proof right here. 86 proof, you can't really, in my opinion, get like the full extent of what a distillery can do, even with an entry-level bourbon, if it's at 86 proof. It's different for Scotch, at least for me, for a lot of people, but for bourbon, you really got to get, at least in my opinion, to like the 90 to like 100 or so proof range to really be able to experience what a certain distillery, what a certain bourbon has to offer. And so I thought the Old Forester 100 proof was the way to go. Old Forester is a distillery that's owned by a company called Brown-Forman. Now, Brown-Forman owns a lot of really big names in whiskey and bourbon. Well, we'll say American whiskey. So, Old Forester, they own Old Forester. They own Woodford Reserve, which I imagine you've heard of, and they own Jack Daniels. So I think Old Forester is a better way to go if you want to get the Brown-Forman experience without going into Jack Daniels or Tennessee whiskey. So let's crack this bad boy. Got a screw cap here. Whatever. Let's save some money. Well, if I can open it without having to buy a pair of pliers. But there we go. Rubber nails here. This has been in the glass long enough now. Let's give it a little twirl, get a little smell, a little taste, see what's up. It's surprisingly dark in the glass, which is kind of cool. One of the laws regulating bourbon is that there can't be anything added to it. So you can't add any kind of food coloring or any other additive that's going to affect the color of the bourbon. The color you're seeing was imparted in this distillate, in this spirit that was distilled from grain, from the wood. All this darkness in here is from the oak that this spirit was aged in, which is pretty cool. Oh shit. Let's give it a nose. I pick up on Brown-Forman products a pretty strong banana scent. It's hard to say exactly where that comes from. It's probably some combination of the rye, the oak, and the yeast that they use to distill this spirit. You know, maybe some of you are kind of binging these, like skipping a few days and then putting them all together. If you are having this whiskey back to back with another one, and you give it a smell after you smelled one of the prior ones that we had, it doesn't matter which one it was, like, you know, the Buffalo Trace, the Wild Turkey, the Evan Williams, like whatever, Knob Creek, any of them. This will come off as being very banana forward on the nose. It's less prevalent on the taste, but it's definitely still there. Oh, it's definitely there in the finish for me. It's almost like bananas Foster, and then it turns into like a bananas bread, right? So like a really sweet banana-y flavor, and then you get more of the rye spice that comes forward in a very strong, like, baking spice way. So that banana plus the baking spice, it's very reminiscent for me of like a banana bread. If you enjoy this and you want to know what's next, what you can upgrade to, or different ways that you can explore, Old Forester in particular does a pretty good job of giving you some different options. So their basic entries, I guess I'll call them, in their core line are the 86 proof version of just the Old Forester whiskey plus the 100 proof that we tried now. But they also have what's called, what they call the Whiskey Row series. So it's these whiskeys that are Old Forester and then they're named some year from like some point in the late 1800s, and then the latest one is the 1920. And it's their, like, I think it's their original recipe, like a bottled and bond recipe from the year of the Bottled and Bond Act. The 1910 Old Fine whiskey, which is, it has like charred and toasted barrels, which is a totally different dynamic for some of these bourbons. And then the 1920, which they call the Prohibition style. If you like this, you'll like the flavor. I mean, especially if you want a higher proof with like stronger versions of this, absolutely I'd recommend the Old Forester 1920. It's delicious. It's not too strong. I think it's about 115 proof, but it's definitely got, you know, enough proof there that it's like close to being unfiltered. It's really, really good. I would say it's the closest to a strict upgrade of this that I think you might find. But if you want to explore other similar sorts of whiskeys without having to go to like a crazy high proof, there are some different things I would recommend. The first, which is a little tragic, but I mean maybe there's some hope, is Early Times. If you find one of these, you should buy it. To make a long story short, this used to be distilled by Brown-Forman and was, in my opinion, and a lot of folks' opinion, the best value in bourbon. It was, I think a few months ago, maybe even a year ago at this point, sold to Sazerac, which is the company that owns Buffalo Trace and Barton 1792. And they are now distilling the booze in here, supposedly not altering it or changing it much at all, but every distillery has a different profile, so I can't imagine that they're going to be able to replicate what's in here. It's really good. I'm bummed that it is not going to be made in the same way that it was. If you find it, you should buy it. This next one is a little bit easier to recognize, if not easier to find. It's an Old Forester single barrel selection. So if you liked the proof point on the Old Forester we just tried, the orange labeled one, and you want to try something that's, you know, along the same lines, you know, not crazy heavy, but maybe tastes a little bit different, but with a similar profile, you know, go to the Old Forester single barrel if you can find one. It's a black label. It will always be 100 proof if you find the black label. These are store picks, so they are barrels that a store or like a grocery store company can taste to determine which barrel they like, which one they want to buy all together, and then have bottled and sent to them. And this one's good. I'd say good, not great. I like it. I don't know that I would choose it over the Old Forester 100 in the future, just because this is like 28 to like 32 bucks, and this is like 60 bucks. But it's pretty good. If you want a higher proof version of this stuff, and I mean higher proof, like known for being freaking hot, like tough to drink sometimes, you want to look for an Old Forester single barrel with a blue label, because that's the barrel proof stuff. They're a lot harder to find. They go pretty quickly when stores do get them in, but there are a few of the national chains that do get them in on a somewhat regular basis, maybe like 2 or 3 times a year. So keep an eye out for those if you like this flavor profile. Just know you're going to be getting something that's really, really hot to the taste. And to close things out for the Old Forester, we've got yet another brand owned by Brown-Forman called Cooper's Craft. So Brown-Forman, they own their own cooperage, which is a company that makes and puts together the barrels that whiskey is aged in. What I've heard about this whiskey, and I can't confirm yet, is that it's aged at least in part in toasted oak. And when you toast oak, which is basically like baking it in a big oven, it produces a different flavor profile than if you just put bourbon in a virgin American oak barrel that's not toasted, that's just charred. I've never had this before, but toasted oak in general can be a little bit different. Well, I'm sorry for how long this video was. If you stuck through, thank you, and I'm sorry. But hope you like the Old Forester 100. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to send me a text, give me a call, or leave a comment. And if you want to try any of this other stuff that I have, if you like the Old Forester, just let me know. And I hope you are having a very good month so far. Merry Christmas, and I'll see you.